Welcome, everyone, to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and today we will be talking about Jedi Survivor, finally. And joining me for this discussion, the long-awaited return of Ty Black, is Ty Black.
Yeah, I'm back to discuss a game, which we haven't discussed a game before, have we, Marie-Claire?
Me and you together? No, but I did talk about Vader Immortal and Jedi Fallen Order when they originally came out, just high level. I wasn't able to play Fallen Order very well. It's too hard. So I just discussed the cutscenes and like the story and stuff like that.
Yep, which is all valuable.
Yeah, and then Vader Immortal, I watched a dude play through.
Yep.
And I was super happy with his playthrough, except I wanted to look at the art on the walls. And he was like, I want to look and try and find where I'm going. And I'm like, no, please look at Vader Immortal's art on the wall, which to this day, Vader Immortal is still like one of the most important games in Star Wars to me.
Yeah, and I watched that as well, and it was amazing.
I want to play it, but like I also know I will vomit. So this is what I have to deal with.
Yes, yes.
I was super happy with the improvements that Jedi Survivor made over Fallen Order. I played Fallen Order and I got stuck at one point. I just physically couldn't do some of the things that were being asked of me in Fallen Order.
Yeah, and it was hard.
Survivor made the story mode like way easier, which made me happier with the game because I didn't have to fight with it to enjoy the story.
Yeah.
So, thank you for the creators to do that. I still think some of the jump requirements are too complicated for some physically disabled people. Yeah,
I could agree with that. As someone who plays lots and lots of video games, some stuff was just really too hard. I did turn it to I guess one step above story mode for a good while. I would kind of go back and forth sometimes, but eventually it just got to the point where I could not stop dying. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep it on story mode from here on out. And it was tolerable, but there were some areas that kind of were finicky. But
I remember specifically there's a part when you're on the Kobo array on like the moon where you have to make like, I think it's like 8 jumps in a row. Like wall jump, things are moving. And I died so many times, or it's like I fell off and I was like, I can't do this. And there's a lot of, Marie-Claire, look at what I play. Because like, you know, it's just it's a lack of being able to press the button physically.
When you need to.
Time.
Yeah.
And there isn't a lot of options to not do the path as prescribed, which is hard. Whereas like I was playing Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at the same time, which I do not recommend because they have opposite controls. And actually I had to stop kind of playing one game for a little bit to play the other game and come back and like remind myself how to play both games. There's options on how you go about things because it's a more open world, right? Like it's not required to do things exactly as prescribed. But this game, you have to do the wall jump to get to the next part. If you don't, then you can't get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of the hard things. So there might be people even within this that are still physically limited and not able to do the story, even on story mode. I don't know how they solve that. Yeah. And if people pay for the game, they should maybe create an autocomplete option.
Well, yeah, especially because it's Star Wars. I mean, it should be accessible for the most part, I think. If the story is important to the canon, I mean, that's what people are there for, to play the story. So
this is going to be a full spoiler discussion of the story of Jedi Survivor and some of the things that we talked about. We're going to talk about in the game. We're going to talk about themes. We're going to talk about cool concepts that, from a mythic perspective, that were created and brought into this game. But first, I really want to talk about the game overall and who's your Cal, who's your BD, and what's your lightsaber choice.
Yeah, this was like one of the more exciting things that they kind of built upon coming from the first game. The first game was fun. I really, really liked it. But seeing how much they really drew upon these more successful concepts was amazing. My Cal, which I had such a fun time, by the way, looking at other people's Cals on Twitter. And I like genuinely the idea that we could dress him up like he was a Ken doll.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
So
he's
good.
like the best Ken doll in existence. He had the coolest looks. I would specifically, I'd find something, I'd be like, oh, I really like this coat. Where are the matching pants? Why haven't I found the matching pants? And I'd go searching for where they were online, find a guide, and just go specifically to find that puzzle to get that matching set. When I found the man bun, I could not let go of the man bun. I was so excited about the man bun. So my favorite looks were definitely man bun or the one with the headband and long hair. That was amazing. So attractive. And then he had there was like a hunter outfit that had like furs. I really liked that. But I also just in general liked the idea of being able to be like, I'm feeling more Jedi today, so I'll go more robes. Or I'm feeling more like a scoundrel, I'll go for more belts and a blaster. So that was awesome.
It's very appealing to be able to customize your character based on your own preferences. When I saw that they had released what was the most popular looks, and it was the crew cut, I was like, who are these people? They have no fun.
Yeah.
I loved his long hair. It's like a white vest. Like the bright white vest that's like leather. And then he had like rolled up sleeves and like one glove. I don't know why.
That's nice. I like that.
Long hair though. He had to have like the like shoulder length Kylo Ren cut. And then pants, like literally I forgot what kind of pants he was wearing.
The pants didn't matter as much sometimes, but sometimes they had like a skirt type of thingy coming off of them.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh, I have to have that. That was wonderful.
Great. Yeah. And like you and I come from like all sorts of different fandoms where like clothes are important and like how the character looks is important, and being able to customize what they look like, how like it literally means nothing if he's wearing different clothes. It doesn't affect the game in any way. It doesn't give him extra,
defense or any points. Yeah.
It's just aesthetically pleasing, which is something we'll dig into in a mo.
Yeah.
And then BD, what was your BD looking like?
Oh, I loved doing more of like the plastics type things, or like the really cool metals that kind of look like marbled sometimes, or they had like an iridescence to them. Lots of pinks. I loved, lightsaber pink matching my BD being pink. And I played around with lots of like copper and, orangey colors, and just anything that was pretty to me. I just was like, I don't even care if it doesn't make any sense. I think it looks cool.
I ended up making BD, like, I don't know, the BD was very different from the original like shape, but I always made BD look like very retro, but with like purples and pinks.
Yes, that's exactly what I did. The retro styles and then the pretty colors. Yep.
Yeah. And like bright purple. I was like, purple BD, because I'm like with you. I'm with my purple hair, and like it was just great. I loved being able to customize BD in that way. I know that was from Fallen Order, but it made me really happy that you had this customization to make this character yours. Okay, lightsaber. What is your go-to lightsaber stance?
My stance. Oh my God. So I got really used to in Fallen Order the double bladed because I liked throwing it and I liked seeing it spin and cut through a bunch of things, but that was really fun. So I pretty much stuck with that. I could not warm up to the blaster stance or
what was that?
Yeah, that was really hard. I used it every once in a while if I was like having a hard time with, how many enemies there were or something. But yeah, that was difficult. And I didn't like the cross guard stance was just too slow for me. I just couldn't deal with it. So
it cuts down a lot of stuff, but like I prefer the double, like two lightsabers.
Oh, one in each hand.
Yeah, because eventually you can get to a point where you can throw both of them, and it's just like, it's not fair. It's just not fair. You're like, what is happening? And you just like mow down so many people because like, and it's better than the double bladed in my opinion from a throwing perspective. But I liked it because there was a lot of options with like jumping in and using both of them, and I liked the two-handed in Fallen Order as much as I played it. But having the ability to kind of like switch it up or like do certain things for certain fights was really fun. And I could not get used to the blaster lightsaber one. It was too weird.
It was basically like I finally got used to the blaster when the game was done. Like I was literally like within the last chapter, and then I was like, I'm finally getting the hang of this. And so, but yeah, it was cool. It was cool to be able to switch the stances. That was neat.
Yeah, it gave you more options. I definitely feel like they were trying to get somewhere with not ending the game when the story is done too. They were like, oh, there's all this other stuff you probably still want to explore. So, you know,
true.
I tend to finish the storyline and then I'm like, and I'm done with this game for like a really long time, just because like how much time can you commit to a game? All of those things, right?
Yeah, same.
I'm very, very happy with this game. It overall, like my opinion of it, it's exceptional.
Absolutely. It's definitely my favorite game in a really long time, probably of this year. I would have to say. I didn't play Tears of the Kingdom because I don't have a Switch, but I heard that's great too. But they
were both really good. Like just in story and in what they have to say, I would say that. But like Star Wars, from a Star Wars story perspective, as well as gameplay, this game is exceptional.
Absolutely. Best Star Wars game by far.
Yeah, like since Knights of the Old Republic, the original one that came out, it is the best Star Wars game.
Yeah, easily.
I still think Vader Immortal has some like really important things that it's saying. But I'll talk about those. I've talked about those, but I'll talk about those again some other time.
Yeah.
Because I think like when a story says something really important, and you know, maybe like I think that's what's really interesting about this, because it's like this game is buried in what, like an $85 game. The story is like, like it's not like going to the movies. It's not like subscribing to Disney Plus. You have to pay for this story.
Yeah, true.
And then you have to pay with time.
Yeah,
to get it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's wild for me to say this, but this is worth it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What?
I know it's pretty insane. I usually won't spend that amount of money for games. I usually wait for them to be out for a while, wait for them to do updates, all that kind of stuff. But it just looked cool. And I was like, you know what? I have the money right now, so I'm going to spend it. I'm going to play it. And I was hooked. And I played it pretty quickly, got through the story. And I'm so happy I did, because it was fun. There should be more hype around it. There really should be. There's not enough people talking about it. We were saying this before we started recording. There's not enough people talking about it. So that's why we're talking about it. Because it's just fantastic. What they did is really fantastic. So
you came back to Star Wars for it. What?
I know. I'm over here contemplating, like I'm reading the like Wikipedia for the first time in months.
Yeah, and like it builds on Fallen Order and everything that was set up in the game from a Fallen Order perspective, but you don't need to have played Fallen Order to understand the story.
Yeah, no, not at all. They fill in the gaps very easily. Also, there was a book between Fallen Order and Survivor about Cal and the crew. That also doesn't need to be read in order to understand the story or where the characters are.
It's all just if you want, right? Optional, right? And that's kind of nice. Like I find Star Wars sometimes slips into the you must consume everything, but unfortunately people just don't have the time. And then it's a slippery slope to be able to keep up with canon, and sometimes people just break and are like, I just can't keep up. I just don't have the time. I don't have the mental capacity to store all of this in my brain and remember all of it. And then if you're somebody who keeps up with all of the canon stuff, you end up becoming that emotional support person to everyone in your life that sort of keeps up. And then they call you and they're like, or text you and are like, what is this? What is happening? I thought Darth Maul was dead. You know, it's an endless cycle of being that emotional support Star Wars fan.
Yeah. It's a good way to put it. It's very true.
This does not require that. It can stand alone. And I love this for that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Let's get into the whys.
Yeah, let's get into the whys. Okay, so we're going to just quickly do a high level call out of the major themes and mythical concepts that are present throughout this story, because I find it helps to ground us in what are some of the things we're going to be talking about. And then we're going to go through and talk about the story beats at different planets, because this story is very nonlinear, and you can there's a few things that you can kind of go about in different orders and find different things out in different order. And so it's hard for you to be like, and then I did this, but then somebody's like, I played it and I didn't do it that way. So we're just going to kind of talk about things in the bucket of the planet. And I hope that this all makes sense in the end. So let's dig into it. All right. So the major thing and difference I wanted to dig into from a theme and mythic perspective, just setting the ground rules of like, hey, what is this story? Is something that Campbell talks about a lot, but it's hard for us to talk about. And Ty and I actually use different language for what is happening for Cal. So in Jedi Fallen Order, I would say it classically ties to a Campbellian hero's journey where he is going out and trying to accomplish a task. He's trying to fight a dragon. He is trying to get something done. He's trying to find the holocron of lost children, and he's trying to protect them and save them from the big bad monster that is the Empire. Trilla, Vader, all of the Inquisitors, he's trying to survive as well. So that's the classic, like, I'm going out and I'm fighting against a foe. Campbell also talks about another journey, which is he classifies as the spiritual hero, which is when a hero goes into a journey that is deeply psychological, digging into his own unconscious and finding the secret truth of the universe and bringing it back to a community. And this is what is happening in Survivor. Yeah.
And you can see it with, typically 3-act stories. The second act is a darker, more internal journey. And that's what's happening in this one. And within the spiritual hero aspect, you have to go within in order to save the without. So,
and we typically call them heroine's journeys. Right? So these things are the same thing.
Yes.
And the fact that there's so much emotion and interpersonal connection and desire put on full display in Jedi Survivor tells us exactly what kind of heroic journey this Cal is on.
Yeah. Because you have to, within the second journey, you always have to find what is that inner darkness inside of you. What is it made up of? How do you talk to it? How do you tame it? How do you come to terms with it? Which leads to the ultimate resolution, which is actually interesting. I didn't think about this before, but thinking about Fallen Order as, the title, which is everything is changed. Everything is, fallen. And like, he goes out, like you said, to kind of slay the dragon with the purposes of kind of reestablishing this thing that's gone. That is never completely resolved.
Yeah.
The second iteration is Survivor, which is just like, okay, we're just going to continue on. We're just going to keep fighting because that's all we know how to do. And that's a big theme in the second one. So then I wonder what the third, obviously I have my ideas about it, and I'm sure you do too, but the resolution will be really interesting if this is just a 3-act story.
Well, if it is a 3-act story, this is the antithesis of the thesis, antithesis.
Exactly. Synthesis will be the third.
Yeah, which is, if it was my hope, if it was my dream, it would be, hey, Fallen Order, Survivor, and then, I don't know. It doesn't need to be, it's like New Path or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say a new something.
It can't be Order, because It can't be.
No, it can't be order. It has to be.
But it's like how you can still follow the refinement of self that the Jedi wanted people to, lean into and still have love and still have support and still have family.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
New path is perfect. And I think we're going to get into why, because of the hidden path and all of that. That is really interesting.
Did I have that written down before we talked? No.
No.
I love talking to you because discussion means I come up with new ideas.
It always sparks new ideas. Was there anything else you wanted to say about the spiritual hero?
Yeah. So Campbell also talks about how when you go into the darkness and you slay the dragon in a spiritual hero type of way.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like tying to like the Siegfried myth where he slays the dragon. He actually drinks of the dragon's blood. He tastes the dragon's blood. And this is the symbol of taking the darkness from within, from without to within, right? And it becomes part of you. This is integrating the darkness that is within you. And that you're no longer separate, and that you have to find and understand that you can't be separate from your own darkness. Your darkness is part of you. And you are more powerful for having the darkness within you, but then you have to understand what that means and constantly be making the choice, which is literally a line inside of this game.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. They call it out quite a lot, which is great.
There is a theme of... Actually, let's go into Sanctuary first, because I think it's really important to talk about that next.
Yeah, let's talk about Sanctuary. Because the whole point of this story is that they, they're fighting and the gang is separated. They come back together and they want to not keep running. They want to stop fighting. And this is like one of those kind of tug of wars between like, we have to fight in order to survive. But we could also hide. That's something that's in a lot of Star Wars during this era already. But sanctuary is an interesting concept because in kind of ancient mythology and also in ancient practice, sanctuaries were under the protection of the gods or some sort of deity. So when you called for a sanctuary, you're typically a fugitive or like some kind of persecuted person. And calling for a sanctuary was not just evoking some sort of man-made law, it was evoking the gods. And everyone just understood, okay, the gods are protecting you, not other people, but the gods. And it's always in defiance of the law. Like, for example, asylum is different because asylum has laws, it has standards. Calling for sanctuary is like fundamentally a religious, spiritual, rebellious concept that stands against the rules and the system and the law. So Tanalorr, and we'll talk more about it when we get to it, but that is essentially what we're dealing with here. It's not just a place to hide, it is a sanctuary. And they call it that, I think, in the game. Yeah.
And so because it is God, it's a hidden place, it's a secret place, and it's evoking the idea of gods. Gods in Star Wars are the Force.
Yes.
Right? So this is a Force planet, much like other Force planets that exist, that is protected by the Force and by the universe itself. It has its own natural defenses and things like that. Yeah. It also classifies as a lap of the goddess. So it brings us back to, it feels very Garden of Eden-like, it feels very, everything is perfect here.
Yes.
There are no things that are going to eat you. There is no, comparing it to Kobo, even like, Kobo, you run around and people attack you. Like animals just like attack you out of nowhere.
They call it a paradise, which again, from a religious perspective, is really fascinating because again, it stands outside of the realm of reality. It stands outside of the realm of what is real, and it's coated in this purple mist, which purple, it also evokes some thematically interesting things in the Star Wars universe.
It does.
Yeah. So it's a very strange place, and we'll get into more of that when we get to the planet in terms of the physicality of it and how it looks and how people interact with it. But yeah, very, very interesting concepts happening with Tanalorr.
And I want to say, like, it is, because it's a lap of the goddess, because it's this other world place, it is outside of the stream of time in a way. It's absolutely safe from like what they all desire. It also has some other representations in it. And it also classifies as the lower half of a hero's journey. It is the other world. It is a place where, but it's like the thing about Lap of the Goddess is that it's never always horror, right?
Right. Well, you also can't stay there. So
you can't stay there permanently. It is a place to rest, to recuperate, to deal with things psychologically, but not in a way, because often the hero's journey is associated with when you go into the darkness, you go into the underworld, which we've, talked a lot about on this show, and go see my underworld episode that was just released last episode. When you go into the underworld, sometimes often it's horrific, or it's scary, or you're dealing with monsters, or you're battling for your life. This is an underworld or a other world that is not scary.
Right.
But you cannot stay there because it is the equivalent of dying. Mm-hmm. It is an underworld in that you are not participating in the society at large. You're not participating in the galaxy. You're separate. Exactly. It is not a permanent solution. That is really, really key, even though it is presented as a permanent solution to some.
Yeah.
In the story.
And that is the contradiction here that we're going to have to wrestle with from a theme perspective, from the other characters and what they want perspective. Like, this is a really, really interesting concept here. So recently just released an episode on the House of Atreus from a theme perspective. You can go back and listen to that episode. But the idea is House of Atreus is a house, a group, a family in ancient Greek mythology that sacrificed their children to basically their own pride and desires. And this story represents an anti-House of Atreus story. And the solution in House of Atreus, and go back because it's the theme, once you start seeing it, you will see it everywhere. The solution to the House of Atreus curse, which is the curse of us all, the curse of Star Wars, the curse of the Skywalkers, is to approach with kindness and to stop killing. So it gets most of the way there. Yeah. But there is a curse that is brought on somebody. So we have to talk about that because it's something that has to be resolved in a third part, because we know that this needs a third story. Yeah. We just know. Exactly. It needs a third story. All right.
Last thing, which is to the fact that Kobo represents a sanctuary. It also, sorry, not Kobo. Tanalorr to the fact that Tanalorr represents a sanctuary. It also represents symbolically the elixir, which can be brought back to people, and functions both from Kobo perspective and the theme of mining as buried treasure, but also how you treat that buried treasure thematically and symbolically ties to the most force type concepts, which is when you have a buried treasure, if you plan on hoarding it for yourself, if you plan on finding it and only using it for yourself, then it ties to the idea of sort of the American dream of getting rich with no effort, rather than working hard and sharing, which is the quick and easy path if you get rich with no effort. Yeah. And if you get rich, but like you share it with others, you're tying to the light side, which is finding that treasure and bringing it back to the community.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. The elixir.
It's very forcey. Yeah. And I love it. All right. let's dig into by planet and location, the different aspects of the story. So we start out and we are arrested.
Yes. I did call a lot of the twists in this pretty quickly. I was really happy at how Star Warsy everything was, because it kind of made me go, oh yeah, no, this is a ruse. Like, he's pretending to be a prisoner, because this happens all the time in Star Wars. Like,
yeah.
And it's great every time. But yeah, it allowed us to get a sense of the location. It filled us in on, it gave us some exposition about where Cal was and his story, who are the big players, what's going on here in Coruscant. And it very quickly gets into the action and fighting. What is the guy? Is he a senator, or is he like a...
Yeah, he's a senator. Yeah.
Right. He's a senator, and they're trying to steal something from his yacht.
Yeah, this is a mission that he has gone under for Saw Gerrera to try and get sort of, data. And, basically he knows he's valuable, so he turns himself in.
Right.
In this
in exchange.
Yeah.
Right. And this is, we have the ninth sister that pops up, and we know them for the previous game and for other parts of Star Wars stories. And I think this is when things really kick off, is like with meeting Bode and then the destruction of Cal's team.
Mm-hmm.
That's what really kicks off this, like, this is now really the second part of his story. And we're getting into some dark stuff of, I'm the only one that survived. Mm-hmm. I'm the cause of everyone's death.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen this.
The odds are overwhelming, because that's part of what he discovers with the senator's yacht and the data, is that the Empire is only growing more and more powerful, and the small little efforts that they have been doing to try and counteract it, where he's been like, I've thrown my whole life into trying to help, that I've given up on people I care about. Like, I know I'm no longer with Seer, I'm no longer with Grease, I'm no longer with Marin, and it's overwhelming.
Nowhere. Yeah, I've gotten nowhere. And yeah, they even show like the map with all of the dots on it that basically represent, like, okay, we have this one, but there's all of these others, and how are we supposed to be able to go up against this? So yeah.
And Bode is introduced as somebody that you have been, hanging out with, and who's been basically helping you for a couple of years now.
I think I thought they just met, like they just started working together in that moment, like that they knew about each other, or they've been
working together on a couple of missions. I thought like they had known each other.
Maybe. I just know like they had like, they really got to know each other in this one. Like they really have a lot of conversation about who they are, and they kind of like jab at each other a little bit here and there, and just have like a very bro-y back and forth. Yeah. Very bro-y. But Bode does establish himself as like someone that Cal feels like he can trust, and vice versa, it seems, in the conversation. But as soon as Cal gave him the tracker thing and said, like, come meet us up, here, like later on or whatever, I was like, I have my suspicions about this relationship. I totally suspected him from that moment. But Bode's a great character, because he has all the things that like Cal doesn't have, and personality and gear. It was just very well done for like a foil. You spend your time like flipping and jumping and swinging and running. And he's like, I'm just gonna use my rockets and my rocket man look up and just go where I need to go. Yep. Everyone's cooler than you, Cal. Yeah. So you go back to the Mantis, and the Mantis is damaged on the escape from Coruscant. And one of the cutest little moments in it is that you have to clean up the Mantis before you bring it to Grease. Like, you haven't been making good food. You've let like some of the plants die. Like little things. Like, you have to go and like clean up your mess. That is like, so right.
I'm going home to Dad, and like Dad would be so sad that I treated the Mantis this way. So I got to kind of clean it up. But yeah, the mantis is in rough shape, primarily because of the escape from Coruscant. So he goes and says, well, okay, I got to go take it to Greece to actually get it fixed up. And you arrive on Kobo, which is this mining planet. It doesn't grow anything, although there are like sort of livestock. So it all the way from the beginning, it has this old Western vibe.
Yeah.
Which is so cool.
It is so cool because it's like, yeah, you're right. It's a very desert type of landscape. It comes across as like you can't cultivate things here. Like you can't find a home here. You can't stay here. It's just a place to come through, like go through. But you very quickly through the game, you learn that it is kind of this home. It does become a home base, and you can grow things there, and you can put roots down and whatnot, which was just a very, very cool concept. And you've done a lot of like Once Upon a Time in the Outer Rim, type of stuff covering Mandalorian from that perspective of Star Wars being inspired by these old Westerns. Like, I'm sure you were thrilled.
Yeah, no, I was, because Westerns themselves function as, not just the American monomyth, but this is actually the American monomyth, but healed, which is cool because primarily the theme of when in truth, Western society, especially when you had no farmers. This is key. This is like legitimately what it was like when you had no farmers. You had a few things. You had ranchers who were cow herders, and you had cowboys. And cowboys were actually considered to be an insult because they were thieves, right? So you had raiders, right? And occasionally you had miners and prospectors and things like that, right? But in general, it wasn't, if you think of like stories like Deadwood, which was like on HBO or whatever they're calling it nowadays. It's a town, or it's a location of violence. Right. You're going to run into violence wherever you go, and there is no creation.
Well, yeah, and there's nothing ruling over this area, including there's no like spiritual rule either. There's no like,
there's no community
belief
coming together.
Yeah.
When you arrive, and it's every person for themselves, raider, prospector, saloon owner. It's everybody kind of just disparate and separated instead of coming together as a community. And that is in the solution to the American monomyth, is that everybody has a place, and people from disparate backgrounds and disparate ways of thinking come together and create something new. Creation is the key to the destruction that is on Kobo to start, because it's nothing but violence when you arrive. Yeah, which is really interesting that Tanalorr ends up being the key when Kobo's right there. I don't know if you thought about that, but the fact that like Pyloon Saloon is that it is this small community that you are creating throughout the game. So it is the answer. It is the place to literally put down roots and grow. Yep. And this ties to the idea that you can build your sanctuary, your haven, your rejuvenation wherever you are. Yeah. Even in a desert, even in a place that's completely lawless. Yeah, anywhere. It's pretty clear that they're saying this. So I did want to call out that Grease in all of this is so interesting. So Grease named his saloon after Pyloon, who was his great grandmother. And apparently that was, just as a side note, the narrative director's actual great grandmother, or his grandmother, who died at like 103, was named Pyloon. So they named it Pyloon Saloon. And it's kind of this, matriarchal symbol it's a home. It's a home. Grease in the first game talked about his great grandmother all the time and talked about her cooking, and that's where he gets all of his recipes from. So he cooks for everyone. He's very like the nurturing aspects of the crew,
Yeah.
Right. And he's always been like this representation of home and healing.
Yeah. Yeah. And food is a big part of that from him. And he also, I think he is the one who started the garden on the Mantis that Cal gets the seeds for in the first game. And then, of course, that evolves into the rooftop garden on top of Pyloon Saloon, which is so fascinating to me because it has no value.
Yeah, it's similar to the to dressing Cal up in different outfits or changing BD or changing the look of things. It's just, do you want to make your home, as temporary as it is, improved?
Right. And there's something really cool that you can do with the plants up there, which is you can change. First of all, you can put anything wherever you want, which type of seeds you collect, you can put them wherever, but you can also change their growth state. You can tell them to stop growing and you can tell them to keep growing and then they'll grow to like their full size. But you can do that in case you want them to look a little different from the other ones around them. You can create different patterns. And it's so interesting because essentially what you're doing is like, you're doing it for the sake of beauty and to appreciate them growing.
Yep.
Which is, hugely symbolic in the world of Star Wars. But to do something for that and not for like the points. It's great.
Or completing the game faster or easier or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same with Scuba Steve, right? Collecting his places is collecting knowledge and like understanding and just bits of story.
Oh, I love his stories.
And that stuff is like, there is like, you get to make the fish tank prettier.
Yeah. You get to add more fish to it.
You get to make it more interesting to look at. And to have a video game say that these non-rewarding, quote unquote, rewarding from a video game mechanic perspectives are still valuable is so cool. Because it's like it's like rewarding art. It doesn't have to tie to sort of
like numbers or stats.
Or like the idea that everything must be in service of more power or doing things easier.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. It reminds me of this tweet that I saw a long time ago. It was really funny and it stuck with me, which was, it basically said, do I like video games or do I like walking around and looking at things? And I was like, oh my God. Absolutely nailed it. Because I mean, I love good puzzle and I love, a fun, shooting game where things go boom. But I love this idea that we can just like, walk around and, I can do this puzzle and collect this thing that just makes my cow look different. Yeah. That's cool. Like I unlocked mustache. Awesome. Am I going to use it? No.
But now you have the option of a mustache. Should it be Movember when you're playing? And this also ties to collecting the different people around Kobo and saying, hey, why don't you come to
my little community
and like, why don't you hang out at the saloon and build a community? And that's like the DJ, Mosey and Turgle, like all of the different characters that you can now interact with. And some of them open up different new components of the game, like the DJ and others, like the one person she's there from the beginning, but like if you do enough in the community and kill enough of the raiders, you can like open up like the bounties and things like that. But there's also just like discussions you can have about life. And there was one character, and I do not remember what she said, but I took a screenshot of it and I tweeted it. I'm like, this is the most Star Wars thing that has ever been said by a character. And I don't even remember what it is, but it aligns. Like you can have these discussions with these characters and just explore the community. And this all ties to, so the garden, the Scuba Steve, the saloon itself, the fact that Grease kept a place for you, a bedroom, like you have a home. No matter what, you have a home. Even if you didn't think you had one, you had a home all this time. All ties to the idea of video games that do this successfully show psychological change journeys in a way that allows us to truthfully link heroic journeys or the adventurers' journeys from a Campbellian perspective and show how it's always progress over perfection.
Yeah.
So in psychology, when you are experiencing a transformation of self, so you're like, I would like to change. I would like to quit smoking, or I would like to insert exercise into my life. Yeah. It's always going to be a spiral where you are closer and you're getting closer and closer to what you want to do. And then you have a bad week, or you fail, or you fall off the journey. And there is always progress. You have made progress in your life by improving yourself and your community around you. And how that happens mechanically or like from a story perspective inside of these stories is you have gone to the underworld, you've gone to your own unconscious, you've found the seed, you found the fish, you found the person, you found the key of the next stage, and you've brought them back to the community.
Yeah.
It's all connected, and it allows us to take a step back and see, yeah, for ourselves as well, like in the real world, as well as in this video game. Yeah, I have made this community better. This community has improved. And that's intrinsic video game reward. What?
Yeah, it's something really weird psychologically when you can see like your actual progress, and you can kind of come back to the saloon and look around and be like, wow, I did this. Like, yeah. I got this person, I got this person, I got this fish. Oh, I collected a new song. Like, let me go have the DJ play it. Like, there's just funny things about that really do something to your brain. And I like that a lot. It was very satisfying. So yeah, Kobo's Moon.
And let's move on. Yeah,
let's move on through the plot, which there was a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to talk about the array and the moon together because it's really to focus on Centauri, Kree, and Dagon, and like a little bit of like like the Bedlam Raiders like subplot. But
right.
Like so, but like they're kind of together to me. Every time you left for the array or for the moon, it was kind of interconnected from a story perspective.
Yep. True.
So when you start to go down this, like, you've discovered Z.
Yeah, right. Who was buried underneath the saloon, by the way.
Basically. Yeah.
It was so strange, but really cool.
There's this weird, like, tunnel in your bedroom. You're like Grease is like, hey, could you, like, check that out? And you're like, fine. Okay. Go take out the smuggling tunnels, and then you wind up in a High Republic, like, sanctuary.
Yeah, there's definitely some like as above, so below stuff going on in there about like the community that's on top of this like ancient, this ancient stuff. But yeah, Z is a really great character who I thought was going to be the key, by the way. I was like, oh, she actually has the way there in her or something like that, but that's not what happened. But she's still a funny character.
She still helped enable it to happen, which was cool. So she is an old High Republic droid that worked for the Jedi, and specifically Centauri Kree, who was sort of a scientist Jedi in the High Republic, who were investigating Kobo matter and the existence of this hidden location called Tanalorr.
Yeah. So when we first get the mention of Tanalorr. Centauri. So we want to talk about Centauri Kree and Dagon Gera.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty clear from pretty soon when you start to hear about them that they're foils of Cal and Marin. And Cal and Marin, when they start to uncover more of the story, they know themselves that they're kind of like them. And they can see that. And you can see them when they discuss them. They're like, well, what did they want? How did their story end up the way that it did? And what are we going to do things differently? And I did want to call out that this is what's basically happening in the story is that this knowledge of the past is what's going to give them the wisdom to not make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
Because that's what stories do. Like that's what stories are fundamentally about. And it's kind of awesome that that this is what's happening, but at the same time, they do exactly what the characters do. They do make the same choices for similar reasons. So I don't know. It's there in the psyche. I think it's there still within them, and maybe Dagon and Centauri will still be the reason why they end up making the right choice in the end. I don't know, but they know that these two characters are so similar to themselves, and they talk about it in the story.
Like they talk about Dagon as this very possessed person who doesn't build or doesn't lean into having community and like friendships very easily. Like his like specific like alien like race, I guess. Like he like they don't, but yet he has this very intensive connection with Centauri Cree.
Yeah.
Like I would say it's bordering on romantic. I think certainly that's something like they kind of
I thought it was. Yeah.
You know, like they're certainly attached to each other in a non-Jedi way.
Yeah. It felt a little like Spock and what's her name? But it felt like a very like I'm emotionally unavailable.
Yeah.
But we basically are partners. And I was surprised that they didn't confirm that by the end of that story. But
she left
regardless,
the door open for him. That's part of like the revelations that happen later on in the game is that she said, "Hey, if you ever figure your stuff out, here's the way to Tanalorr." He had it the whole time, and he just never wanted to watch the end of the tape. What the hell?
Yeah, that was very tragic.
You just never bothered? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, dude.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't save people. Like, yeah, and that's part of it, right? She always had hope for him, but so they had been investigating. She had been investigating Kobo matter and like how to get to Tanalorr. They had this dream that this could be like an alternative Jedi temple that they could train students at. But like we said, Tanalorr can never be a place that you stay permanently. It's a place you visit. Yeah.
It's a place you hide out for a short time. And you, don't want to say too much till we can go further into it. But
the best, like, similar example I can think of is Acto, like in Star Wars. Acto is a holy place. It is not a place you're supposed to stay, Luke Skywalker.
That's actually a good comparison. Because it is the lap, like you said, lap of the goddess is what Tanalorr is, and that's what Acto is as well.
And it's also when you're stuck and you're staying there, you're hiding, and you're hiding from progressing and helping the community and bringing back the elixir that you have learned, right? And that's why Luke Skywalker is spiritually dead.
Yeah, and he dies there, and he dies. He was already dead. Yeah.
Aww. And also, like, same with Dagobah in a way, even though it's creepy and scary and like a swamp. But same with Dagobah. If you're stuck there, you know, you stay there.
Yep. And then you die there. Yep.
Boo.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. So Kobo's moon, I think, is when we start to really get more familiar with the Kobo matter. And I did want to talk about this a little bit. Basically, because we mentioned that it's like Tanalorr is in this other world and it's being hidden by the gods. It's being protected by the gods, which in this case is the Force gods, or however you want to look at that. And there is this nebula that is hiding it, and they call it the Kobo Abyss, but it's a nebula. And nebula is what creates stars, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically this mixture of like hydrogen and cosmic dust, and cosmic dust contains organic matter. And for me and for how I'm seeing this is that it's containing us. It's containing the things that make up our bodies and our brains and our memories and everything that we are, like everything that is
primordial soup.
Yeah.
From a cosmic perspective, or it has all of it is. So we come from darkness, but this is the darkness that we come from, and then we create light, and we Like, and so this is how it's interconnected. This is us.
Yeah. We have the ability to sort it out because we were sorted out from it. So it is darkness, but it's also light. So we just have to like look at it and have to be able to shake things out, which is essentially what happens like with how you point the beam at the stuff and it kind of burns away, but it sort of just evaporates into everything. Which, you know, if you get into science and like the rules of matter, it's not going to actually disappear. It's transforms. So, and it kind of glitterizes. Made up that word. It just turns to glitter and it kind of like goes into the air. And that to me, I'm just like, okay, it's literally like cosmic dust. And yeah, so nebula creates stars, nebula create life and all of that. So again, it gets me to the question of like, what is actually happening there? Yeah. And is a star going to be created within this nebula? And is that actually going to destroy Tanalorr? Or like, you know, there's so many different ways you could take it. But just based on what is there physically and what's happening and how this Kobo matter, which is the same, it's the stuff inside of the nebula, it's on the planet of Kobo, which it shouldn't be there. But yeah, and then it's
because they were studying it, right? And it's gotten out of control and has like invaded because it also represents sort of like a shadow, right? Because like shadows aren't necessarily good or bad. It's just what you do with them, right? And it becomes restrictive in the game in that you have to shine the light through them and actually to be able to move through them.
Yeah. Because there's also there's two different kinds. There's the matter that's like more viney and dark and crystally.
And then Kobo matter that's like particles in the air that you die if you go into. It's like a swarm. Yeah.
And it kind of freaked me out at one point. I thought that because it looked like the Kobo matter and the kind of glitterized portion of it looked like the memory of Dagon and Centauri were like formulated out of that. And I was like, wait a minute. Is that actually like them? Or is this actually like Jedi that have fallen and that they become like this cosmic dust? Which can't be totally true because Dagon is in the Bacta tank. But I think from a conceptual point of view, that's not necessarily completely wrong, because if it is like cosmic dust that's come from the nebula, then it is everything.
Yeah,
it is us.
Very forcey. Like we are
very
the nebula.
Forcey.
Yeah, and also like we are this darkness that exists that we also have to destroy to create. Like it's yeah,
cool. Which is it's very, very cool from a conceptual perspective. Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting that they like during the creation of the game they didn't know what the Nile were, so like the Nile is added in like brackets and in the closed captioning of the game.
I didn't catch that. That's funny.
They knew that there was something about the High Republic, but the High Republic was being like created while
they were doing
this. And you know, it was a really, really interesting way to tie in
the High
stories of the High Republic and what the Nile were then. And basically the Nile destroy anything that was on Tanalorr.
Yeah.
Because that's how scary they are.
Yeah. And you're right. They didn't go into that. And I assumed as much. It was because the High Republic is tackling that as kind of the big bad. But yeah, it was interesting that the main factor for like Dagon turning to the dark side isn't because of the Nile necessarily. It's because the Jedi abandoned him and abandoned this
idea.
place. Yeah. So, and we see that a lot. That happened in the first game where I forget the guy's name, but Mela something on Dathomir had convinced all of the witches there, that the Night Sisters, that the Jedi are the ones who destroyed them all, right? So Marin turned on the Jedi and thought that was the reason all her sisters were dead, but it wasn't. So, but yeah, a lot of people have that mistaken notion that the Jedi are to blame about everything when sure they are, but
they have their part to play and are not blameless, certainly.
Of course, but it's never the reason. it's never the right reason. It's never, it's always being misrepresented. So, and again, it just leads us to like, okay, then what is the hidden path? What is the point? How do we get back to like what a true Jedi actually is? And I do see them flirting with that.
Oh yeah.
A lot.
Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, because the next planet is actually Jeddah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jeddah itself is so interesting because it's pre-Rogue One, obviously, right? This is before the destruction that is met down. But I mean, Jeddah City is destroyed in Jeddah, so I don't know how much Jeddah is actually still around. There's a lot of these like desert places, right? Jeddah also classifies as sort of a dead planet. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have there are places to hide, but it's not a place for you to thrive. That's really, really key. The anchorites themselves and the hidden path has created a sort of Cyr and Cordova have found that as their purpose to bring them back to community, to have things to care about. And so Jeddah itself, although Mirren is there, is primarily about the idea that Cyr and Cordova have gone into their own darkness on their own journey and are now in, participation in giving things back to others.
Right. Yeah. And they have all these like students and they have all these people who are dedicating their lives to this, the hidden path is what they call it. But it is this, what the ancient Jedi practiced, and they're trying to figure out what that is and what that means, which is so interesting because when you're walking around in the temple, or I'm not sure if exactly it is the temple. I think they do call a section of it the temple. I don't remember, but when you're walking around in certain parts of Jeddah, where Cyr is and all of the students are there, they're having these discussions in the corners and they're just talking, and you can kind of go up and you can listen to them, and they're discussing things like what is the nature of the universe and what is light and dark and these very high concept things. And the end of the conversation, it always ends in this like jumbled thought. Like it's not quite there. And
just so very Star Wars, because George always wanted people to like listen and then think about it later.
And think about it. Yeah. Yeah. Cause and usually in these conversations, like it was usually like a student, it was either two students or it was like a student and a mentor type of person or teacher. And the teacher would always encourage that. As soon as you get to this area of confusion, it was always like, yeah, I know you're doing well. Keep thinking about that.
Yeah.
So, and I love that because that's always what I've loved about Star Wars. It always leaves me in a place where I'm like, I have to think about that more.
Yeah, exactly. So you show up and like the base itself is really cool. You can actually like go and check out a bunch of stuff, but you show up and originally like you can't get to the base because of a storm and because of some stuff. And so you arrive and lo and behold, who is there to pick you up? You have to like go and find her, but you're trying to meet your contact and you're like, who is this contact? And it's Mirren. And you're like, oh my God, it's Mirren.
Yeah, she has like the most like amazing entrance too. Like she just takes care of all of these guys and it's so epic. She's always saving Cal like right at the last minute. Like she's always saving his butt, which I love. She's epic. But
sort of like how love works. I just love that there's this sense as you're the player playing the game, when she shows up, they set it up in such a way that there's this absolute sense of now I'm home. Yeah. And it's a person and not a place. And so that's really cool and neat that you are feeling the feeling of sanctuary that we talked about earlier, but with Mirren.
Yeah. 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 And they really intentionally lean into this, like really lean into it. She can't stop touching him, which I loved it. You know, she's
so good.
It's so good because, you know, one of the things that she says, obviously, when they first meet is he's like, you know, where have you been? And she's like, I found what I was looking for or whatever. And he's like, what is that? And she said, it was myself. I found myself. Which means,
God, that's just our shit right there.
Oh, heck yeah. Because, like, you know, especially for women in the Star Wars universe, you know, anyone that's like, you know, this more feminine coded characters, they are not allowed to have desire and they're not allowed to have romance, and or if they do have it, it's on the man's terms. But this is very much Mirren saying, like, I know what I want, and I'm going to scoot a little closer to you, and I'm going to hold your hand. And in the middle of the night when I wake up and you're not holding my hand anymore, I'm going to hold your hand again. Like, she's giving into her desires, and she, you know, takes his waist when they're on the tall animal thing. I forgot the name of it, but she really intentionally touches him. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, wow.
Oh,
like,
wait. Is this supposed to happen? Aren't I just supposed to be living for like my values now?
Yeah.
Can I survive on values alone? Like, he's literally so confused. It's so good.
It's so good. And I wanted to say that, like, he definitely desire is important, but also, like, Cal waited for her to be ready. But when she is ready, he has to jump further. Yeah. And that is so
That's done
romantic.
Symbolically in the game.
Yes. Like,
okay, we're going to talk about that scene because I'm dead. Can we talk first about Mirren's new powers? Because symbolically, they're really cool.
Yes, I think you're pronouncing it Mirren. I don't know if it's Marin or Mirren. I feel like it's Marin, but
Mirren. I don't know.
I don't remember how they say it in the game,
Mirren?
but I think it's Mirren.
I'm going to pronounce it the way my brain allows me to pronounce it.
I think it's fine. I don't think anyone's going to come after you for that.
Mirren?
It sounds very similar. But yeah.
Mirren. Might be pronounced both ways. I don't know. Anyways, so she has a couple of new tricks up her sleeve when she arrives. Mm-hmm. And one of them is that I am dead. She can literally repair buildings. Architects hate her. No, like, so like this crumbled building that has not been formed in you know, maybe 1,000 years, and she's like, and it's fixed.
Yeah. And don't they call her something like the witch or the ghost of the desert or something like that?
The ghost of the desert, yeah.
Yeah. And they joke about that when they're like running through the desert, and then she'll like pop up in front of the stormtroopers and just kill them, and they're all like, oh no, it's the ghost of the desert.
Yeah.
I loved that so much.
Like, David W. Collins does like the most amazing job of all of his. I know him everywhere. I'm like, oh my God, I had to kill David W. Collins today. No.
His voice is in the game too. I didn't know that.
It's everywhere.
I love it.
At one point, he's talking to himself.
That's amazing.
He's like a K2SO security droid, and then also it's the one where he's behind like a screen, and he's like, haha, Jedi, you can't get to us. Yeah. And the droid's like, that's right. We must abide by our security protocols, and use the Force on him. And he's like, oh yes, we have to let you in. And the droid's like, what are you doing?
I can't believe that. That's amazing.
There's one point on Kobo, and there's a guy, and he's like, what am I doing this for? And he's just sitting on a little dock. At the valley, and you can
force push him off.
You can force push him off. You can kill him. You can sneak past him. And I'm like, I just killed the saddest man. I need an option to be able to be like, why don't you quit the Empire, dude? Like, I need that. Like,
dude, maybe that'll be the resolution in the third game. That's like Cal's new power. Like, you can like convince people to walk away. You can literally
just sit down and talk with them and be like, hey.
Yeah.
Like, I would kill for like the ability to actually talk Imperials out of being in the Empire.
I would kill for the ability to not have to kill them.
Yeah, well, like, you know, like, it's all metaphor here, but no, I want non-combat solutions, true Jedi solutions of like, hey, have you thought about going home and rethinking your life? Like, I just would love that. Like, hey, I got this card, and you don't want to be part of the Empire anymore. Why don't you go to this place, and they'll like help you?
I love that. I think that's awesome.
Like, I would like spend extra time to not mow down tons of Imperials.
Yeah, me too. I mean, they pretty much showed how it's the same thing. Like when you use the dark side later in the game, it's like it's the same thing as if you were to not use the dark side and just kill them all in a harder way. So I feel like that was done intentionally, but I could be wrong.
Maybe.
It felt intentional. I'm not saying that they're going to have that in the last game, but I am thinking that the Jedi way is something that they're, like I said, they're flirting with it. And if you go down that path, that's what it leads to, is not necessarily nonviolence, but at least a more like varied solutions towards nonviolence.
Like, trying to have more nonviolent solutions would make me really, really happy.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Mirren's power, so she's got this like thing where she can fix places, which is, she represents this healing aspect of around Cal that like, I can help you fix what's broken, and together we can walk a path together. So cool.
I love that.
Her other powers involve both her transportation herself, but also being able to transport Cal with his like little like gift from her.
Yeah, the green gift, or the gift to go through the green stuff.
Yeah. And that also is very symbolic and cool because it's like their powers in union.
Yeah. And they basically share their powers in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, Mirren's power is like actually comes from learning how to use the Force in a different way. Because apparently her background, the backstory behind like the Night Sisters, is that a Force user came out, a woman Jedi came to Dathomir and taught these women how to use the Force. And so their powers are essentially of the Force and even from the Jedi. So
but it's like very like wild woman archetype.
Yes.
Force powers where it's from nature and it's from like the deep, like feminine within.
The dark feminine
power. And it's not bad. It's also just not like, it's more natural. And that's like, because nature itself is scary and dark.
Yep. Yeah. That's why we live not in nature purely, is because it is scary. And I think Mirren is particularly interesting. And sorry to go off a little bit on the rails here, but we didn't get to discuss it much. But Mirren, she had all of her system of order taken from her when she was a child. So her family and that matriarchal system that was in place did not necessarily exist anymore. And she had to raise herself in the wilderness of Dathomir. So she actually got more of that from having to raise herself in this wild place. And so that really made her a part of who she is. But also an interesting thing that I wanted to call out between the last game and this one is that the only consistent costuming on her is the necklace filled with the triangles. And they're specifically like, feminine triangles. So they're the upside down ones that represent like a more of a feminine concept in that ancient way. So I feel like she's such an interesting character in that she keeps that as a part of herself and she won't let it go, but she hones it. So she keeps her sisters with her. She keeps that, that natural wild world with her, but she's just honed it and she's figured out how to use it in the right way. And that's what, essentially getting back to what you're saying, is that's what she gifts to Cal. So,
and it's this gift of the feminine, and it's also a gift of like more in tune with his own self, right? Because like Campbell also talks about how when we talk about ourself as the whole, the ego and our unconscious, it's not up to the ego how we exist. It is the whole self, and including the unconscious. But the ego wants to put ourselves in a box.
Yeah.
And Mirren is saying, no, you need to listen to your whole self.
Absolutely. She is a person who has deep desires from the beginning that we meet her, and she doesn't let those desires go, and she doesn't ignore those desires, right? So that's like fundamentally a part of who she is. Like she has this cold exterior, but she connects with people in her own way and she knows what she wants. I just think that's such a cool thing. But like I said, what it does to Cal, someone who's very cautious and very careful, who it has been in his childhood was raised into these ideas of like standards and rules and the Jedi way.
Yeah.
She has to teach him how to hold on to his desires and his needs and his wants. And when she is ready to jump into a relationship with him, he has to jump further. He has to go further because all of a sudden he is emotionally without. So he has to figure it out very quickly.
Literally unmoored. And at the point where we discover this, like, oh, hey, she really likes him, she kisses him and then throws him into the craziest, both cinematic and game mechanic wild ride. Like, it's like a green portal water slide of insanity. Like, it was, I did that sequence and I was like, I would want to do it again if I felt like I could do it and not like fall apart trying to do it.
There were some times I kept falling, I kept dying, but every single time it would restart and that music would start playing again. And I was like, wow, like it was so cool. There was a choral playing in the background. It was beautiful.
And like the kiss, I was like, oh my God, frame this. This is art. This is like a triumph of storytelling.
Yeah.
We're here. So you're like trying to save the hidden path, basically, and you're unsuccessful in saving the people associated with the hidden path, but you're able to save the codes and the ideas of it, obviously.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to escape with your lives. And Mirren's like, I want this and I want you alive. And so we're going to go and do this crazy, crazy thing.
Yeah. Do you trust me?
Do you trust me?
What do you have in mind? Do you trust me?
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Because again, we've seen this before in other romantic stories. The do you trust me? Take my hand, get on the magic carpet ride. Like we all know this. We're all very familiar with it. And it's in my Star Wars story. And I'm just so happy.
If you're listening to this and you haven't played the game, just like go watch this sequence. Yeah. Like it is so good.
You have to watch the gameplay because there are some people that cut out the gameplay part. And I'm like, no. There's this part in the gameplay because there's obviously the cutscene. She tells him, or she kisses him, tells him to jump. He jumps. And then there's the gameplay. Within the gameplay, he's like, I can't believe this is happening. And she goes, believe it, Cal.
Yeah.
And it's just so simple, but it's so like, and they do that throughout where she reassures him that, like this is actually happening, but he can't believe it's happening because not only is he dealing with the fact that she just kissed him, but they're bound. Like, they're bound in magic. They're bound in this like
it's like a marriage.
Yeah.
It really is. It is the moment of alchemical union for Cal where he accepts trusting another person as much as he trusts himself.
Yeah.
And that's what's key.
Yeah.
Oh,
very
so good.
Cool. One of the best things in a video game ever.
Oh, yeah. You go to Kobo and you go to the moon and you go back to Kobo and you come back here.
Yeah.
And basically because you found more information. And then you have this night where Cal and Mirren like talk. And here's where like being a spiritual heroine's journey, they talk.
Oh, and I do want to call out before this conversation happens though, Bode talks to Cal. And Bode is
he's been telling him about Kata this whole time. That's also really important. Kata's important to me. Kata's like this. This is what I'm doing this for.
And he's telling Cal, you have to figure out what you're doing this for. Like, you have to figure out why you're fighting.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you have to choose between one or the other, you have to figure out what you're going to choose. Like, what is it that you want? And so he really places that into Cal's head before he goes to this conversation with Mirren.
Before this conversation. And that's like really, really key to Star Wars.
Yeah.
in that, like, we're always faced with these false binaries in Star Wars. You have to choose the dark side or you have to choose the light. You have to choose Mirren or you have to choose the hidden path. You have to choose Kata or you have to choose, saving other people. Kata has to die. Like, and it's the trick of Star Wars that they never truthfully give you the answer, although they kind of do in this story, in that it's a false choice.
There's always a
third path.
There's always a third path.
You have to choose for yourself, right?
Right.
It is. It's always your own choice to be like, I'm going to protect those I love to the best of my ability, and I'm also going to help others to the best of my ability. And that involves finding a hidden planet that nobody's ever found before. Okay, right?
Yeah. Well, that's why this conversation with Mirren is not necessarily like, this is not the be all end all. This is Cal saying like he wants her, but he doesn't know what that means yet. Like he doesn't know how he's going to be able to reconcile his current life and his conflict with that conflict that's happening, and also have Mirren at the end of the day. Like,
but he acknowledges that like the way he thought about the world with the Jedi and the only like what he was trying to do in Fallen Order by restoring the Jedi wasn't the way, because he can't exist in a world where he also doesn't get to be with Mirren.
Exactly.
And that's what it's saying, is like there's more to life than just surviving.
That's how I took it. And they have tea right before this with the whole gang.
Yeah.
And they're making jokes with each other, and it's just this beautiful thing. And again, you know, tea and what it is and what it represents, with just having it with other people and sharing that moment.
Having this very family moment with Grease and Bode and Mirren and Seer and just like having this calm sanctuary.
Yeah, exactly.
In amidst the chaos and in amidst what they were going through, which is like they're so close. So this was a lap of the goddess moment, right? Where they have time to rest and think about, what are we fighting for? What are we doing this for? And this is like one of the big like problems I've had with Star Wars in more recent years, is we always get to we're fighting for this thing because it's the right thing to do, but we never get to what are we actually fighting for?
Right.
And we do occasionally, but it's so rare that we're trying to fight for family. We're trying to fight for our loved ones. And Mirren is Cal's loved one and family now. They're like symbolically married. Like, this is what happened. It was the craziest wedding where he had to jump through a bunch of green portals. You know,
and she's fighting along his side. She's there a lot from here on out in the game. So it's like they are now these binaries. You know, we've talked about that before as well. You know, from a Star Wars perspective on the show, is they're now sharing so much. They're rotating around each other. They're in each other's path, and they're not gonna.
It's exactly like a battle couple creates this dyad, and the relationship itself is stronger than the sum of its parts. Like that's what we want.
Yeah, the two
Star Wars and
new.
Romance.
Yeah,
amazing, and romance feels so good.
It does.
It feels so good. I feel like I'm like crazy because it's like, wait, they went there?
Yeah. No, I was shocked. I was screaming the whole time. It's amazing.
So you like go to bed and you're like, the world is great. We're about to find Tantalor. And then Bode's betrayal.
Yeah. I
wake up the next morning.
The calm before the storm. We all knew it had to be coming. But yeah, Bode's betrayal is the worst.
It's the worst.
It was worse than I thought it was going to be. And I totally saw it coming, but it was horrible.
Yeah, like because he kills so many people.
Yeah. Like, and he kills the Cordova, who's like so innocent in all of this. Like,
just
it's
a good
just
guy.
So sad.
BD's daddy, like, come on.
Yeah,
BD is so sad.
That was so sad.
You leave without BD, and that's the worst part. You're like, I'm leaving without BD.
Yeah, who is like his little like conscience in a way. Like he leaves, he has to leave him. It's everything kind of breaks apart at this point. And this is that fall, that tumble to the dark side. It's just like, if it can get worse, it will get worse. And it keeps pushing him and pushing him and pushing him further to the dark.
And there is a semi-dark side proposal scene with Bode, which is really cool to see, which is like, well, why don't you join us? Like we can possess this secret thing that is in the darkness. Tantalor, this secret elixir, and just keep it for ourselves.
Yeah.
back to what we talked about at the beginning, is that like that's the dark side, is like wanting to possess this thing, this power that exists in the dark side, instead of understanding that it needs to be shared with others, to help others, to, you know, heal others, to give it to others. And Bode's like the genuine feelings of Bode and Cal being friends is heartbreaking. This betrayal.
It is.
But you understand Bode. And there are people in this world that just make these decisions like this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he definitely is easy to understand. And like we said before, like he is everything that Cal is not. And those are the good parts and the bad. Like he has parts of himself that Cal, you would think in a video game, should have. Like the hero of this video game should act a little more like Bode in some respects. But he doesn't. And I forget when exactly Bode gives Cal the blaster, but it's definitely obviously before he betrays him. But I did find that really impactful, that he was giving him a quick and easy weapon. Path.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which again, it's not the gun is not painted as being this evil thing. I mean, you use it, you can use it. It's not very Jedi.
Yeah.
But it does end up, you know, spoiler, it does end up being the way that he can defeat Bode.
Yeah.
It's the gift that Bode gave him. So it's interesting. Where we end up with Bode is really interesting. But yeah, let's go back to...
You have to go and like trace Bode like after this, like after the destruction of Jedi and the Anchorites.
And he's like screaming Bode's name too. That really gutted me.
Man.
Yeah, I forgot about that part, but that was so sad.
And like you there's this seer moment where seer you take over as seer.
Yes, I
after this part. And then like Seer goes and like saves the day like a superhero.
Yeah, she's like super, super powerful.
She's amazing. And then you run into Darth Vader.
Yes, Vader. Yeah. So can we talk about Vader real quick and this fight?
Yeah.
All right.
I have no thoughts because...
Yeah, you seem very like deflated about the whole thing, which I totally understand.
Like Anakin is like, because I consume so much like Anakin Vader related media, to me he's just a sad wife man who made mistakes and is suffering for those in the underworld. I just, you know, he's in a walking coffin. Like he can't learn from his own damn mistakes. So he's always very pitiable to me. I know he's a monster, but I feel no fear from him. Although I did feel fear when he showed up. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Damn it.
As soon as, because as soon as Seer decided not to run, you're like, well, this is the end, because she literally was sealing herself away when she lowers the platform with them on it. And it just felt like it was the end for her. So I was accepting of that, but I was also like, come on, really, seriously? But yeah, Vader at this time of the Star Wars story in the universe is like this, he's fated to become, and he already has been, a redemptive killer. He began as a redemptive killer. He still believes like he's redeeming the galaxy through killing the Jedi and the younglings.
He believes like bringing order to the galaxy is the only way to keep it safe.
Yeah.
And to make it into what it needs to be.
Exactly. He is justifying his own actions. And at the very end, when he kills Palpatine at the end of his story, that is a redemptive killing. That is the redemptive killing of the entire story. And, you know, there's obviously some questions there once you get into the sequel trilogy, but we'll avoid that for now. But as long as Vader is like haunting the galaxy, no one can live their lives the way that they want to. Yeah. And this is kind of like the ultimate problem for this story. And this is why I think they created Tanalorr, because Vader is literally actively poisoning the galaxy, and he will always find you, because he's looking for
the boogeyman.
Yeah, he is the boogeyman. He's haunting every corner, every dark corner. And there's something interesting that happens in the fight with Seer, is that when after they fought a few times, and he's kind of struggling to keep up, he kind of nods, he like tilts his saber towards her, which in the prequels was always kind of seen like from Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon as like a respective gesture. to say like, I respect you and your like
abilities. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he does that to her, which is strange. And also that's when she talks about the fact that she has no fear for him. So, and then he gestures in that way. And it's just immense amount of respect, I think, coming from him. And then when he staggers away after her she misses hitting him with a saber, and it zooms out and we see that the way that he staggers away from her is like an old man, like you said. He's like raspy breath, like he's literally staggering. He kind of falls onto the shelves at one moment, and he doesn't slaughter her. Like he doesn't cut off a limb or anything.
He just stabbed her the once. Yeah.
Yeah. And he kind of just staggers away. Like he doesn't take joy in her death, which is not how he usually does those things. So
he's very braggy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I found that so interesting, and it felt like a huge amount of respect for Seer, not only coming from Vader, but coming from the writers, like towards her character. So I really appreciated that. But
no, that was all great thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't need to see Vader in things. I don't know if I needed to see him in this, but it was useful, I suppose. He is the ultimate hammer of a character. If they run into Vader, he will die. You will die unless you run.
He is the ultimate problem that they have with this story. They've literally written themselves into a corner with this, and I know there are ways out, but like I'm doubtful. Let's just say that.
Yeah. I mean, he is what he is, right? Everybody knows what he is. So if they choose to use him, then like it's like when they chose to use him in Rebels, right? Yeah. They chose to use him for specific characters to have a confrontation. Yeah. And they needed to create an entire situation where time and space is altered to fix the problem.
Yeah.
With certain characters.
Right.
Because it's just it's interesting. I think that it ties to what they talk about with Tanalorr, which is like we're gonna create a place that's gonna outlast the Empire, which is kind of an interesting idea too, right? So it's about outlasting the Empire, and the Empire only has like, they don't know this, but like 10, 15 more years max. Like it's not that much time,
right?
10 years at this point. I forget when this actually takes place, but it's during the Empire years before.
Yeah, right.
A New Hope.
Right.
So Cal is so angry. He's like, Bode betrayed me. And Grease has this conversation as they're on their way to basically confront Bode and find the compass that they need. This is the secret. This is the fetch quest. We need the thing to get us to the thing. They didn't need the thing the whole time. No. We all know it's a rigged game, and he's referring to life.
Yeah.
But it's how we choose to play, and that Cal cannot take on the fact that Bode betrayed him as anything other than a sign of how Bode has chosen to live his life.
Yeah.
And Grease's line, like, this was so important because it ties to everything that I talk about with Star Wars, which is it's always a choice to turn around, to do things. And we do get that from Cal when he confronts Bode later, which is so good. There's always a choice, and to choose not to is, of course, the choice from a writer perspective.
Yeah. So they go to when he goes to what's the base called?
Nova Garen.
Nova Garen, yeah. And you mentioned like this is another underworld, and a lot of crazy stuff happens here from a gameplay perspective, but won't go into all of it. That because basically he infiltrates it, and when he goes in, Grease is like, "Please don't take down the whole base." Like,
there's a joke about that. Like, is he fighting the whole base at once or something?
Because he was supposed to be stealthy about it.
He does end up pretending to be the lead one of the ISB officers for a bit, right, and walking around the base, and that's kind of fun because you talk with people and they're such jerks to you.
Yeah.
Anyone you talk to is like, just so mean.
Yeah,
so mean.
They call it his red hair at one point. I thought that was funny. Like they were like, "Who's the guy with the red hair?" or whatever.
I had like the longest hair. Like I had the long hair, and I was like, I don't fit in.
Yeah, do not fit in.
No wonder Katz is like, you're not really an ISP officer.
I had the headband on with the long hair, and so it was very clearly like that was so fun.
There's something so fun about donning like into New Hope with like Luke and Han and pretending to be stormtroopers and like, fly casual. Like you're just pretending to be going into these locations. Mm-hmm. There's something so fun about being like undercover in.
Yeah.
And it ties so thematically with where Bode is at, that you're like in the right mental space to hear Bode's story when you arrive.
Yeah, definitely. That was really nice. But but Cal is so focused on the fact that he betrayed him, and Cal is so focused on the fact that like he did this to me, and not focus on the fact that he didn't do anything to Cal or for any reasons having to do with Cal. It was all for Kata. And that's so disconnected with Cal because he's taking it so personally, and he's taking personally the deaths. So
yeah, I mean,
of course,
he's there. But you arrive at the quarters and you look around and you're like, obviously there's a child that lives here.
Yeah.
Because like there's like a little like tent and you look around and there's like just it's very homey. And yeah, you discover Kata and she kind of confronts you and is like, you're not actually like an ISB person. The conversation is so wild and interesting. Like you go and find her stuffy, like her little stuffed animal, and she's like packing and she's like, yeah, my dad says we gotta pack, like we gotta go. And like you're also betrayed by the fact that Bode is like using you because he kind of lured you here to take care of the Empire and the leader who has these things on Bode and knows who Bode is. Yeah. He wanted you to kill somebody for him.
Yeah, he wanted Cal to see his daughter and like take a little empathy on him to give them enough time to get out of there and have Cal take care of everything else.
And also like kill the owner, like the main ISB person who had all of this like control over Bode. Yeah. And you don't kill that guy.
No, because that would be the quick and easy way, and Marin stops you from killing him, which is brilliant. But at that point though, Cal gives in to the dark side and he feels so betrayed. And I think it's interesting because it's definitely compounded a lot by the fact that he listened to Bode's advice about like taking what he wants or doing what he wants, wanting to go down the path to what he wants. And he's just starting out on that. And like we said earlier, he doesn't really know what that means or what that looks like, but he made himself emotionally vulnerable. And I think that is what led him to fall to the dark side as quickly as he did. It's because he was already in a state of being emotionally vulnerable and he didn't have those walls up and he didn't have like the Jedi way of determining the right reaction. He was already ready.
He didn't have like an alternate safety net for dealing with like this conflict within himself.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. When you have detached yourself from a core set of like the way the world works, if you don't have something to replace it to or something to lean on,
exactly,
you're gonna slip.
You're gonna go to a dark place.
Yeah. And that's what happens. And like when you leave Nova Garen, you rip open doors in the chase after Bode.
Yep.
And you're like angry and you're like just like run, destroy. There's no hiding, there's no sneaking.
Nope.
You're just destroying
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty dark. I was playing it and Corey was in another room at that point because he was doing something, like he had to do something for work, and I was playing and I was like, oh my God, this is really bad. This is really bad. And he was like, what's happening? Maybe you don't want to know. Like it just felt in the moment like really bad, because you're sucked into the story and you're sucked into the emotional state of Cal. But they played it very well, and it was unfortunate that there was no like resolution, I think, really. but they got to some form of resolution, which, like you said, when you take away kind of that alternate viewpoint, that alternate, like, you know, way to react in a disconnected way, right? Like from a you know, the Jedi viewpoint of detachment. If you take all that away, then, and you don't have anything else to kind of lean on, then you're going to immediately go into this dark place and this place of just reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And Merrin is there suddenly, and she keeps him from reacting in that way. And that's what he has to fall back on now.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily a good thing.
No, it's not. And so, like, that's why you and I are like, hey, thesis, antithesis, we need synthesis. We need like this third path, not only for Cal. It's showing us that there is a direction and that there is this place that they could exist and have this alternative way of non-Jedi, non-dark side. There is a third way. It's saying this is the answer to these things, but we don't have that story yet.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's really key, is because even though this was an absolutely friggin' brilliant game, there is a more important brilliant game in the future that we need as fans of story and fans of this concept above all else. You do a brief stint on Kobo to get the array aligned correctly. You go back to Kobo and you get this all set up. Which is really cool. And you fight Dagon.
Yeah.
Dagon
was really hard. I had a hard time with this one.
I died every time I fought Bode. And I'm on story mode. I should have used the gun thing. I just didn't. I'm like, I hate the gun. I don't want a gun. Stop giving me a gun. I hate guns. I ended up having to use the gun, and that's when I started to figure it out. Right. I did want to say something. I kind of forgot I had this note in here, but sharing the dark side thing, right? So when Merrin, and this happens from this point on, so this is relevant to everything we're going to talk about now, as Cal is kind of tapping into the dark side, he shared that with Merrin. Merrin sees it, she perceives it, she keeps him from doing something he's going to regret doing. He is actively conversing with her, not necessarily with words, but they have this shared understanding, right? She knows what he's going through. And by sharing the dark side, and we've talked about this before because this is shadow stuff, if you're sharing the dark, then you're actively participating in the ritual of eating your shadow. Like that is a way to do it. Because you're getting it out of yourself to be able to actually consume it back. And you need to... And that's what therapy is too. And also just like I'm sharing of these dark things with somebody I trust and love, you know, friends, family members who can create a safe space by which you can actually deal with them. It is showing you how this happens.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
It is cool. And again, it's not resolved, but it is happening. It is something that he is participating in the resolution of it. He just hasn't resolved it yet. So fighting Dagon is hard. And where are we after?
So you turn on the Kobo sequence after fighting Dagon.
The arrays.
Because you listened to the end of the message that Dagon never got to.
Right.
Where she's like, hey, if you just turn on the arrays, if you turn on all the arrays, you can come find me.
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, I never got to hear that message. And you feel bad. You feel so bad. And you're like, the mistakes was that this was a lack of communication.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't talk about, and so like, it's always so satisfying when Merrin and Cal talk, because you're like, yes, baby, just talk.
Just talk. Yeah. That is the elixir that Dagon and her were giving them. It's like, this is our story. This is what happened to us. Like, don't make the same mistakes.
We didn't talk about what our desires truly meant and what we wanted from each other or anything.
Yeah.
And so you turn on the array and you find out that somebody has to stay behind to keep the array, to basically have their finger on the button. And C's like, I volunteer because this is what I've always dreamed of. This is my purpose. I've been here to help Centauri Kree's dream come alive. And you're like, yes, C, yes. So she turns on the array. You leave in the mantis with Mirren because you know Bode and Kata are there, and you have to go and confront them at least and you have this conversation with Mirren where Mirren's like, hey, could we just like maybe like not kill Bode because like maybe we should give him a chance. It's the right thing to do is to say there's always a way back. And that's reinforced when you talk with Kata because you're like, wait a second, we were all orphaned by the darkness and we can't do that to Kata.
Yeah.
Like we can't. And this is House of Atreus. Right?
Uh-huh.
It is specifically choosing to not inflict the generational trauma on the next generation.
Right.
In the way it was inflicted with no choice, like basically giving powerlessness to Kata that she doesn't have a choice or she isn't involved in this conversation, but she can see that her father is not making the right choices. The writers are very smart with that.
Yeah, and I wanted to call out that Kata doesn't like Tanalor. She doesn't like it.
She doesn't like it. Yeah.
This is really important to me. Also, Tanalor.
What's
to
lonely?
Go along. Well, and it's dark and gloomy to her, right? There's nothing there. There's no animals. There's no people. So Tana in Italian means den, lair, or burrow. So I wonder if like that's kind of the
like
kind of thing they were going for.
It's like a legend.
It's right.
So it's like this hidden legend.
It's like a hidden den, and like
it's just not the end solution. Like, yes, it can offer a place. And I certainly think that Grease was kind of leaning into it. He said, like, maybe I can franchise here. Like, like I could do a Pyloon Saloon for Tanalor, right? Like, and maybe that's like, once they start to build a community there, maybe that's the solution. But there's something otherworldly, and it's not a place you can permanently stay.
Right. And so something else interesting about Kata is the Bode says that the first time I held her, I saw the entire galaxy in her eyes.
Oh.
I think that Kata is the key.
Okay.
Like,
she's definitely, I feel like she's going to be a Force kid, right? Like, she has to be, because, like, we didn't talk about how Bode, like, fell in love and, like, had a kid. Like, he's a Jedi. He was a Jedi. He was working for the clone security bureau. Yeah. And then basically used his skills that he had developed there to hide from the Purge.
Yep.
And fell in love and had like a mini sanctuary situation in himself, but they still came after him. And he used his abilities and his former contacts to basically avoid the Inquisitorios.
Yeah. Kata's a love child.
Yeah. Which is like, yes, baby. Yeah. Jedi love child.
She's a Jedi love child.
Very similar to Luke and Leia, right? Like,
absolutely.
We have to think about it in that terms. In that way, Kata is Luke and Leia special.
I think so. And I think her not liking Tanalor says something about where this is heading. She's not going to want to stay there. She's not going to want to make that her home. I mean, clearly she's warmed up to Cal and Mirren like very quickly. And I think that because of her like knowledge of the, like, she's watching everything happen in front of her and she knows that these are good people and they're going to take care of her, but she knows that too quickly. And I think that's
the Force.
Maybe Force. Yeah. It's Force sensitivity and all that. So that's going to be, I think it would be interesting if they jumped ahead in time a little bit, maybe when she's like a teen or something like that. And maybe we could play
as be during
her.
The war, during the rebellion war.
That would be really cool.
Age of Rebellion.
Yeah, I definitely see Kata being like a bigger character.
It would be cool to actually see her as a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be really cool.
Like, like, I know. I want to. Oh my God.
I want to get off this planet. I don't want to be here anymore.
No, I just know what it is now. I know what it is, and they've probably already written it. So, but okay, if you're a creator and you're listening to this, do not listen to me for the next little bit. But they're going to give her both Jedi and Mirren's powers. They're going to give her both powers.
Okay, so I assumed that already.
Okay,
because Mirren's she's going to want to pass it down.
Has to be.
Has to be.
Yeah. Even if they had their own kid, it's not as much as like like training, like giving
no, the
these
Kata's
things.
her like
Yeah.
they're like adopted child. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna have a kid for themselves. But it's interesting though because like
It's so George to have this situation happen.
Oh yeah, 100%. And she's gonna be like you said, like Luke, and she's gonna grow up and she's on this planet if they continue to stay there, and she's gonna be like, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to get off this.
Yeah.
The shiny
new purple
thing.
Yeah, shiny purple like underworld.
Yeah. I mean, we could be so wrong here, but
I don't think it would so.
we could be, but that would make so much sense.
When are we wrong? Very rarely.
That's true. We are very rarely. There's just that one big time.
Just one time. And yet I was still kind of right, which sucks. Okay.
I know.
So you have the final confrontation and all this like kata conversation is led up to it.
Yeah.
And you have the fight, which Bode is like totally overreacting and he ends up kind of putting Kata in danger, even though like Marin's fighting with you, which is so cool. It's great. It's good stuff. And you've given him opportunity after opportunity to be like, stop it. And Mirin goes and rescues Kata, which is healing the House of Atreus curse.
Right.
Which is the sacrifice of the galaxy or the children, right? Choosing one or the other. Well, maybe with both Cal and Mirin working together, you can choose both.
Yeah.
You get beaten down, and at some point, did you turn to the dark side before this fight?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. This is when it showed up for me.
Did I? I don't remember.
This is when it showed up for me. So if it showed up before it, cool.
You mean like not like, when you use the powers, but there's like
during the fight, you fall down.
I think I did.
And that was when it showed up for me because I hadn't died before that.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I remember this now.
And I had to use the dark side.
It's been a few weeks since I played.
I had to use the dark side, and I was like, "Oh, fine, I get what you're doing, story. Okay,
yeah."
And you're like, "Oh no, dark side," and like you get filled with this like red darkness, like on the edge of your screen. It's so cool, and like you kill him.
Yeah. So I remember it being with the blaster because he pulls out the blaster, and you're
given no choice. You have to use the blaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it is the quick and easy path. And it is like he's giving you the solution to kill him the whole time, which is, oh, God. Story.
Yeah, it was really sad, but it was exactly what needed to happen.
Yeah.
If you're going to have this character, if you're going to have Cal really fall to the dark side, this is how to do it. But yeah, it's just not.
It's going to be struggling.
Yeah.
And then, so it's all resolved. Katz is like, I accept the fact that my dad went about these things the wrong way, which is, it's good. And she gives her dad the stuffy at the funeral. And I just like, I cried.
Oh, yeah. It was really sad. Yeah.
And you have the funeral for Cordova and Seer and Bode. And it's kind of like all of these aspects of Cal that he's moving past. And they're all, basically cremated. And you're like, what do we do now? And it's like, well, we use this treasure. We have to find the hidden path. We have to go back and help others.
Yeah.
We have to return from the underworld.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Tanalorr is the end of the hidden path. And that is the idea that they're setting forth with, which is, people are going to take this trek, this religious, semi-religious trek through the universe to find this place. And this is going to be the end of their journey. This is going to be their sanctuary. And I think that in a way, the writers by finding Tanalorr and coming up with this concept, they've created an answer to the problems that plague this particular era of Star Wars.
Yeah. But no Jedi, no, how do you survive Vader? Things like that. Yeah. There's a safe place where you can survive during this period of time.
It's also a place where they can call home, right? This is their community. They can help raise one another here with their found family. But what is it for? It's actually for the sake of growth and beauty, which was a big theme that we were talking about at the very beginning. All of these collecting things for the saloon, it gets poured into, okay, well, now it's Tanalorr. We're going to raise each other here. We're going to support each other here, build this new community here for the sake of growth and community and love and beauty.
And allowing us to get past this like phase of darkness within the galaxy, which is like kind of what Cal says is like, I'm going to build something that's going to outlast the Empire.
Yeah. And so interestingly enough, this goes back to the redemptive killer problem. As long as you are fighting to survive, you're a redemptive killer, right? You are trying to cleanse the world, cleanse the universe of these bad people, these bad things, but you're still killing. It's not a good thing. Like the only way a redemptive killer can stop is through death, typically, right? And like
and it's very Western in that idea. Like you are the lone gunman who goes out and like kills all the bad people, but then you can never be part of the community.
Exactly. So this is the answer to that. This is saying like, if we hide ourselves away from that world, then we do not have to be redemptive killers. If we focus on cultivating and creating things that are beautiful and growing things and cherishing each other and cherishing beauty, then we don't have to fight. We don't have to be a part of this conflict, which is an answer, but it's also not the answer.
It is a temporary answer, which is what we've been talking about with Tanalorr this whole time, which is like, it exists, but it exists apart. And so the key is it's still an underworld. It is still not you bringing back and healing the community at large. And the community in Star Wars is the whole galaxy, unfortunately.
Right. Unfortunately. But it's all connected by the Force, and the Force is there, and there are things that can happen to heal the universe through the Force. I think that with the nebula being there and hiding the planet, it's like fundamentally not a place they can stay. If the nebula were to not be there, if they were to somehow the
Tanalorr becomes visible again, then it's rejoined the community, and it now creates an opportunity for it to bring the elixir back and to have these people who have healed in Tanalorr heal others. Yeah, that's a solution. Absolutely.
It is, but they would have to jump ahead so far into the canon that I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know. I have no idea what they're going to do, but we know thematically they need a synthesis, and also that they need to double down on the third path concept between what the Jedi represented and having your own wants and desires, which are traditionally cast as dark side, which are not. They're just your own wants and desires because it is all part of you. And it's just, like Grease says, how you choose to walk the path, right? Or play the game. He even, like, it's a very meta concept. Like, it's how you choose to play the game. It's like, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So this game, what is this game?
I know, right? What is this game? I don't get to say that often.
It was great.
It was really great.
And we know that there's still more questions, though, that were created by the game. It was a great, amazing game. And I love when people are like, this was such an amazing game. There is a better game out there.
You mean the next one?
Yeah, that's totally what I mean. Like, we need that game because it shows us the answer to all of these questions that are being asked in the darker middle chapter.
I think that you and I can like read between the lines a lot. And I think maybe some people might have not gotten all this, from this game or from the story, but a thesis always asks for an antithesis. An antithesis always begs for a synthesis. And
if it's not answered, it's not satisfying.
Exactly. So it must be done.
It must. Why are we going here? Because we must. Okay. So do you have any final thoughts on Jedi Survivor? And I have like one very George Lucasian thought.
I mean, I'm just happy that Marin and Cal are a thing, and
thank God.
Thank God. Yeah. I needed romance in my Star Wars.
We have more romance. It's been a lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been seeing some, like, people have been writing fics and people have been doing some art.
Kisses in Star Wars, they shouldn't be rare, but
they are. Yeah, and she kisses him, like, several times. I mean, they have several long kisses.
I counted like 3.
Yeah, 3. Several. It's amazing.
I
Like
know.
I can't wrap my brain around it. I can't
more
believe it
than
happened.
2.
What?
I know. More than 1. What? Yeah, like I needed this.
Yeah.
Star Wars
Same.
Star Wars validated me as a fan and validated my experience. It's so weird. It was in a Star Wars video game and not in a major property like a show or a movie, but
Exactly.
I am willing to pay for kisses, obviously.
Yes.
And also like all of the deep thematic and mythological and psychological and symbolic meaning that we have in this story. Also that, yes. But kisses.
Yes, kisses.
Because kisses mean something. It means synthesis. It means the way forward of a duality, a dyad even, outside of a binary. It is a
Creating
relationship.
something new. Yep.
Creating something new. It is a new relationship. It didn't exist before and you're better than the sum of your parts.
Yeah.
Final thoughts.
Yep. That's all I had. Yeah.
Okay.
Give me your Campbellinian.
No, it's George. George Lucas would say, what you need to learn
okay.
from Star Wars is listen to the story, watch it, enjoy it. But then what we talked about, all of these things that are being said by the story, take those. And if you can be in a situation where you're like, hey, just like in the video game, I felt like this, or this was my experience, take that with you out into the world. That's all George ever wanted by creating his stories.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the creators of this story would love to hear that people are thinking about it in that way of what can I take home with me? Because that is the elixir of story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The director of Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor also did the God of War games.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I feel like there's some parallels
smart
that people
stuff,
could find there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Thank you for this wonderful game.
Yeah. Creators. Yeah. Thanks, creators. I've heard nothing but good things from the design viewpoint and behind the scenes. And it just seems like it was like all the good pieces kind of fell together. And that's wonderful. Great to play.
I have wishes and dreams for the third one, which we know we need. We need a third game because it must, as we said, it begs. Yes. It begs of the synthesis. So
yeah.
Thank you. We hope to see it. We don't know when it will be announced, but when it happens, we will show up and play and hopefully talk about it again.
Absolutely. I'll be there for it.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is orchestral music by Christy Carew for What the Force. You can support the show directly on Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force. Melody in Wild Space, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Christian Luca, Carly Ann, Josh Johnson, Scott C., and Susan. Support the show by wearing the Force with our merch. Like and subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other podcast apps. It helps people find the show. You can connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook. Our website is whattheforce.ca, or you can join the Discord. Links are all in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.